Hello and welcome to the Happy Half Hour podcast. I'm Nicola Reeves. I'm Managing Director here at Happy Hour and I'm joined today by Kerry Harrison. Kerry is an absolute AI expert, guru, trainer, experimenter and chair of the DMA's AI Council. Thanks for coming.
Thank you very much for having me. It's nice to be here.
Yeah. So Kerry and I go way back. We worked together at McCann when you were spending your time as an ad agency copywriter. And you actually spent, 18 years as an ad creative before co-founding a creative AI agency in 2018. And I think you said by your own admission that everyone thought you were mad doing that. So what made you do it? Why did you make the jump? Can you talk us through the decisions?
Yeah, thanks. We've worked together a long time, actually. So I was an advertising copywriter for 18 years, all the way up actually to 2018. And I still do write copy now. I just teach a lot of AI stuff just because it's the thing. But I was heading up an agency creative department in an agency in Bath, and someone came in, this is 2018, to talk to us about an AI tool called Phrasey, and it would write email subject lines that they said would beat human writers over 90% of the time when it came to click-through rates. And I was absolutely terrified. So my whole venture into AI came from just being terrified. And I thought, gosh, what is this AI thing? It's going to write better than me. Is my job still okay? I went home that night and started looking at what AI was all about. And I just haven't really stopped doing that since. So that was 2018. Yeah. And then by the end of that year, I'd left that job and co-founded a creative practice called Tiny Giant. That came about just because there was two of us. There was me and a guy called Nortz. We were both copywriters, both creative directors, both had this little fascination with AI, met for a drink. And we got chatting and we were like, should we just do something? And we just said yes. And that's not in character for me. I'm quite a cautious, conservative person. But I was just like, yeah, why not? Let's just do something. And we did. And then, the rest is history, I guess.
Never looked back.
Yeah.
One of the first projects you worked on, we have to talk about, because being called Happy Hour, we have to talk about the world's first AI gin. So tell us about that and the recipe and what you created.
Yeah, so that was a lovely project. We trained a neural network on hundreds of gin botanical combinations. So we got as many gin botanical combinations as we could find. We put them all into AI. So this was obviously before ChatGPT.
Yeah.
This was 2019. So we had to get someone to help us to set up a neural network, and we did that. Then the AI generated recipes of its own, and then we took those to a gin distiller in Bristol called Psychopomp, and amazing gin distillers who know what good looks like and what great taste is, it tastes right. Yeah. And they then looked at these really wild and wonderful recipes and said, okay, we'll take these two. We think these are going to be will work really well, although they will be a bit bonkers. And then they distilled them and they tried them, and we were like, we're going to go with this one. So I can't remember all the ingredients were in it now, but like some flowers, and it was like a really interesting combo. And it tasted really good. And I've always said the reason it tasted so good is because there was a human on the other end to say, actually, this combination will taste like a really good gin, and let's distill it in the way that we know. We're gin distillers and we're experts in that area. And so it tasted really good. And it won 2 taste awards. It went all over the world. And it was just a really fun project to work on. I got to try a lot of gin.
Yeah. So, I love that idea. And that's the main point, that it tastes good, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And then we've also noticed that you were asked by Wired to write the Queen's Christmas speech using AI. So how did that come about and how did it go?
Yeah, it was that again. My early projects was super, super fun because AI was so new. ChatGPT didn't exist. There was a lot of experimentations. I can't remember how I got that job. Just a journalist from the Wired got in touch and said, we're really interested in what might happen if we get AI to write a Queen's speech, a Christmas speech. Are you in? I was like, absolutely. So it was very similar to the gin and that technology using TensorFlow and Colab, which is an open source Google tool. And I trained it on all the Queen's speeches I could get hold of. So Wired did say to me, what do you need? And I said, just every Queen's speech that you can get hold of. So they sent me the transcripts for literally all the Queen's speeches they could get hold of through the years. So I trained it on that. Then it generated the output. And then at that point in time, we weren't at any level of narrative really. So it was more than me as a human going in and taking the bits and pieces and constructing into a narrative. It was... you can still read it online. It's on Wired somewhere, but it was a little bit repetitive, a little bit bonkers. But I think it's just a really good indicator of where it was back then, actually.
Yeah.
So
because it has moved on.
It's moved on a lot.
Leaps and bounds, and in fact every week. But you've talked a bit about the human, interaction with AI, and that's a big theme about what you talk about when you train teams as well. And your line here is adopt AI without sacrificing your voice, values, or brand trust. So, how does that come out in practice? What gets lost when teams try to implement AI or when people start using it?
Yeah, it's a really big question. I think it very much depends on each individual client. So obviously I work with lots of different marketing teams and clients. For some people, it makes complete sense to use AI in all of its glory. If you're a really innovative tech company, you could use AI avatars to deliver all your sales messages. And that looks really cool because it looks like you're ahead of the game and you're using AI. So it's in that case, it's just go for it. And as long as there's a human overseeing everything and really thinking about the narrative that you want to put out to your clients, then that's great. But if I'm working with brands that are more human-centric, more maybe organic, it wouldn't really make sense for them to be using AI avatars. That would be really damaging for their brand. So then it's thinking about, okay, so how can we use AI maybe more behind the scenes? What about if we automate some of your day-to-day processes? What if we use it for ideation and research? So I think it's not necessarily there's not a definitive answer. I think it very much depends where you are, where you sit, how you want AI to display as being part of your business, how human you are, how organic you are. So that's what I would say. In terms of what you lose, I personally think there's always a sacrifice when you use AI to do something. There's always something that you lose, even if that's a really small thing. Even if you get AI to write and use that to write an email for you, you are still maybe not interacting with the person at the other end in the same way that if you wrote it yourself. So I think there's always some kind of sacrifice. I think the main one I worry about is this kind of outsourcing to AI. And I think that's one of the dangers. And there's been a bit of research on it and a bit more talk about it lately around the impact on critical thinking or independent creative thought.
Yeah.
And I think that's one thing that I worry about. Will we just get so used to AI where we're just like, I'll get AI to do it. And then we haven't actually gone through any process ourselves. So I think it's just watching out for that, recognizing when you're using AI. For me, it's about using AI with thought and mindfulness. Yeah. So it's like, I'm going to use AI here. Am I happy with that? What is the sacrifice I'm making? And often it's like, well, actually, I'm very happy to go to write my day-to-day emails on, if it's not a really, really important email, if it's not anything super sensitive, then maybe it would make sense for, I'll get back to you in 24 hours or whatever it might be. Yeah. That would totally make sense for you. But then there's other things where you're like, actually, do you know what? I don't want AI to do this. I want to build this relationship. I want to think for myself. I want to come up with something that's so out there. AI can't do that. So I'm going to sit down with a notebook and I'm going to just sit with a pen and paper and I'm going to do the hard work. Yeah. So I think it really depends on what the job is, who you are as a brand, and just doing things with some kind of mindfulness, I think, really thinking about it.
And do you think, you've trained lots of different teams and different marketers, and do you think that might be one of the common mistakes, that sometimes there's a loss of critical thinking or just be defaulting to it maybe?
Yeah, I think, defaulting, definitely. I think that's, again, one of the concerns that there's often with marketing teams where people turn on Copilot and go, okay, guys, you've got Copilot now, go for it. And people don't have the time to learn new things. They don't necessarily know what they're doing. They're worried about getting it wrong. So there's often that kind of default adoption without much mindfulness or training or thought. So that is a concern. I also think one of the other, not so much a mistake, but is just maybe there's so much hype around AI. I think sometimes there's unrealistic expectations of what it can actually do. And so sometimes you've got people in the C-suite with this like totally unrealistic expectation, passing it down to their teams and going, well, you can use that with AI now. And they're kind of like, well, I don't think we can. So I think just being realistic about what it can do at all levels of the business. So, it's really good at this or it's not so good at this. I think that's really important. So not so much a mistake, but I think being really aware of the hype and trying out what's useful for you and your own team and going from there. Otherwise, you can just, especially when you go on LinkedIn and there's people, multi-agent system, you need to have 3 multi-agent systems running before breakfast. It's all just like, you don't need to be doing that right now. So I think just seeing what's working for you and starting small and building it gradually. I mean, that's my approach. I'm not really a kind of let's do things fast and break things. I'm just not that kind of person. I think we should be careful.
Yeah. And you also talk a lot about the human or the AI sandwich with the human, AI, human.
Yes. I talk a lot about that. Yeah. So my AI sandwich is something that I came up with in 2024. So a couple of years ago now. And I do check on it every year and just say, is this still working? But yeah, I think before that point, I always thought, get AI to generate something and then add the human afterwards. And then what I realized, I think, but the very end of 2023 was actually what we do before we even come to the tools is really important. So having an objective, really thinking about getting the prompting right. And that will massively influence what comes out the other side. Mm-hmm. So for me, it's always working with AI is always a 3-part process of human, then the AI, and then the human. And I think that means that we do our thinking, we really think about prompting. We now at this point where we can choose our models, which is the right model here. And then afterwards, applying our craft, applying our thought, we have to fact check because of hallucination. So there's quite a lot of things we need to be aware of when it comes out of the other end. It's very easy to just go, oh, wow, it's amazing. It's done this thing for me. But we do need to apply our human thought on top of it, I think, to get anything that's really valuable and also safe for a brand or business as well.
Yeah, definitely. And as you say, you still write a lot of copy and you're very open with your clients about when you've used AI, when you haven't. But you're also a big advocate for, like you say, using it in its place, but that human writers can really stand apart from generative AI. Can you spot AI copy every time? If it says quietly.
Quietly. I've got a good... I feel like I'm pretty good at it just because I'm so obsessed with AI and I've written a lot of stuff with it just to see what it can do. There's giveaways, there's certain words that do the rounds. A while ago, it was the word delve, which became a bit of a meme. Yeah. Now that's coming up in the last report I read, 1 in every 1,000 output. So it's not as common as it was. But the word quiet, which we talked about in our training, the word quiet and quietly is coming up. I don't know why that is, but coming up so much at the moment. So even if I read a blog and it's got the word quiet or quietly 3 times in one blog, I'm like, okay, they probably used AI. There's lots of things that it does. There's particular words, particular constructs, things like it's not this, it's this. It does that a lot. But I think it's not so much that it does it, it's that it does it a lot. And so if I see a piece of work and it's got that construct in it maybe 3 or 4 times, it's like, okay, that's probably AI generated. Whereas a human, this is the thing about being a copywriter is that actually AI is trained on good copy. And so sometimes I see the new constructs that it's starting to use. And I'm like, that's so disappointing as a copywriter. And I know a lot of copywriters have had to choose whether they still use the end dash, for example, because ChatGPT loves an end dash. Yeah. So all of those things. And then for me, it was always like, well, I'm not going to let AI force me out of never using a dash because I love them in my copy.
I love a dash.
Yeah, they're so useful, especially with long sentences. So I've just decided I'm going to use it, but just carefully, mindfully, the same kind of. Yeah.
ChatGPT said to me, and it loves, if I were you, I'd do this. Because obviously you're asking it for recommendations and it likes to please, but it likes to humanize itself as well, right? So it says, if I were you. And it said, my children, who are about the same age as yours.
Really? Oh, wow. Okay.
Stop. But it was a good holiday recommendation at the same time, so I took it.
Wow, that's I've not had that before.
That is new.
Yeah, that is new, and I have noticed it's a much more like, well, I think. Yeah, I've definitely seen that in the latest upgrade. But the whole it's really crazy. It's quite dangerous too. I think making you feel like you are talking to a human. I think that can be quite problematic.
In fact, I think it may have even said our children. Wow. Which would have made even more sense
that's pretty
for that
mad.
family, that family mix that I told it about. Yeah, our children.
Wow. Yeah.
There we are.
Gosh, yeah, that's quite worrying.
So let's talk a bit about TV ads and production, of course, while you're with us. So generative video has gone from, I say, quite a novelty and quite sort of obvious, easy to spot, to broadcast ready, I'd say quite fast. Where would you actually trust it on a paying client's video project today, and we're absolutely not.
It's a difficult one. I think definitely behind the scenes I would trust it. Things like storyboarding, ideation, just getting to something that's very rough to initial thoughts.
Yeah.
I think that is a safe thing to do because it's very much in the early stages and you've still got a human very much in the mix. In terms of being broadcast ready, the technology has definitely evolved huge, like so much in the last year. So I think it's definitely getting closer, but I still think it's not fully trustworthy. I did a demo in one of my courses a couple of weeks ago, and I always do the same demo. It's with Google Flow, and it's just about turning a still image into a video clip. And I've done this demo loads of times, and it's turning an image of a cat into a cat that walks down the street, basically. So very simple. Anyway, it's always worked brilliantly. And I ran it the other day, exactly the same prompt, exactly the same situation and tool, and it generated a cat with two tails. First of all, I was a bit like, well, that's a bit embarrassing for me. But then I also said, do you know what? This is the realistic view of what, in a way, it's quite nice this has happened in our session because that is where it's at. Sometimes it's great, does the thing really well. Other times you'll get a cat with two tails. So I think you can obviously use it, and there's lots of people that are using it, and we're seeing more AI generated ads. Whether they are accepted joyfully by the public is a whole different matter.
Exactly.
But I think as long as there's a human, I think you always need someone who's very experienced in the whole creation of a TV ad, great editing. It's fundamental, especially most tools are still generating things that are relatively short in time. And so you need a great editor to put them all together.
Yeah.
So I think as long as there's a human, it's around experimentation, but I just think it's also being aware that there are still huge limitations and we just need to be aware of them. So it's about being, again, this mindful way of looking at AI and just making sure that what you put out, you've analysed it really, in great detail, because it would be really easy to miss something that looked on the surface like it was absolutely fine. But there's, not so much the extra fingers now. That was definitely a while ago, but you could easily get a cat with two tails, as my demo proved. So,
Yeah. You're right about the mixed reception of how it's received, though. And, I think the Coca-Cola Christmas ad is a great example of that. Possibly less so by the public, but certainly the LinkedIn community. Love to jump on that one. But I always felt that's a fine line between VFX and CGI anyway. That ad was, always relied on those sorts of computer-generated updates and animations. So I guess it's just to your point, really. It's that interesting choice of when and how you use it, and as long as you've got those human eye on it.
Yeah, I think so. I think it also depends again on the brand. I think that one of the reasons that was so problematic for people was just because it was it had like a real heritage. That ad. Everyone loved that ad. It was always very the Santa, and it was just so warming. And I think then for it to go to an AI generated version, it just took away all that, almost the magic of it all, the fact that it was crafted by people, and then for that to just go. I think it was more the fact that there was such a history to it. Yeah. Whereas if that was again, going back to what I was talking about earlier, if that was a very innovative brand and they were like, do you know what, we're using AI. Yeah. There was one recently in the NBA and over in the States, a slot that I can't remember what the brand was called now, but they used AI. They're kind of a young, innovative, fun brand, and they used AI. And the whole thing around that was that they managed to create this TV ad for like $2,000, which but it was very, very short little clips, and it was very nicely edited by a human. Yeah. So I think that worked. I didn't think anyone really thought, oh, that's terrible, because they're a young, innovative brand. They were trying things out, and it worked well, and it looked fine. But Coca-Cola Christmas ad is a whole different ballgame. So it depends on the heritage and depends on the brand, I think.
Yeah. Back to your first point, in fact.
Yeah.
Like, be careful who and where you use it.
Yeah.
I'll digress here for a second, but I listened to the Coca-Cola episode of Acquired and learned that it was Coca-Cola that effectively designed the Santa that we know and love today.
Yeah, it was green before, I think.
I had no idea. He was quite sort of elfish before. Yeah. And they decided that they needed a lot of red because it was the brand colour. So they'd make him big and round and red.
I know. It's mad, isn't it?
It's absolutely mad. It's brilliant, though. I love it from an advertising story.
Yeah, it's such a big one. Yeah.
That's incredible. Great. So should an ad disclose that it's used AI? I saw that Claude today is launching watermarks, invisible watermarks to disclose when elements, have been designed and used by AI. So is there a consumer expectation forming? What's your kind of opinion on that disclosure?
Yeah, personally, I think it's really important. We've just had the EU AI Act, Article 50, which is all around transparency, just come into place from the 2nd of August, so literally a few days ago.
Wow, yeah.
That if you're in the EU or going out to people in the EU, you now need to declare if you've used AI to either generate fully or if you've used it to adapt your work. And so that is now law in the EU.
Wow. Like your day-to-day work?
So anything, so it's quite specific. It's specifically around text that is public, that's going out to inform the public.
Right, okay.
That hasn't had any human oversight. Wow. So if you're editing your work, which I would always recommend anyway, then that's, in terms of text, not a problem. In terms of things like video, voice, anything that they would class in their law as a deep fake. So when we say the word deep fake, we tend to think of like a politician on someone else's body or someone saying something that they didn't actually say. But in this context, it's a person, it's a place, it's an event, it's a product, anything that you could perceive as being real that is being generated by AI, that's what you have to mark up. So anything that would class as a deep fake, which is actually quite a lot larger than what we've got in our heads potentially. Okay. So in the EU, it's the law. I think in the UK, obviously we're in the UK, I think if you're going out to people in the EU, you also need to bear that in mind. They've got you can obviously just declare it, but they've even created little icons. So you could put that wherever you wanted to, just an icon. There's an AI completely AI generated one or an AI adapted one that you can put on your work. So we're going to see that anyway. I think in the UK, it's wise to look to that law, although we haven't got that in the UK yet, or whether we will, I'm not sure. But I think just that might become more of, as you said, a client expectation. I kind of want to know when I'm watching something or seeing something or reading something, whether that has been AI generated or whether it's 100% human. So it's kind of getting to the point now where we almost don't have a choice. And this is the first time that the regulations now are becoming a bit more commonplace and we can't just ignore it anymore. When I first started out, it was literally like, let's do this. It'd be really fun. But now it's becoming more of a legal requirement. And I think that's a good thing. I think especially on social media, it's useful to know if what you're seeing is real. Yeah. So
absolutely.
Yeah.
It's such a fine line, isn't it, between misleading and also giving you flexibility and agility. Yeah. Because from a production point of view, where we were once had to go and film on a beach, in South Africa, and then we could look at virtual production. Mm-hmm. And now with the AI capabilities, that can become so much easier to extend our creative freedom.
Yeah, absolutely.
On what are rapidly, reducing budgets as well.
Yeah.
It can give our clients, such a new breadth, of that freedom really in their creative
completely.
And their production versus where does it become misleading, like you talk about on social.
Yeah.
And obviously we have certain codes, the ClearCast, the ECAP, the ASA codes and things we have to adhere to in terms of advertising. But it's such a tricky one, right?
It's a really fine line. And I think I think for creativity, it's amazing. You can just try out so many different things. And like you say, explore different ways of doing things. But I think it's just if it's what they class as a deep fake, it's just that it's marked up. And actually, I think as it becomes more commonplace, people won't mind. If it's a great ad and it looks great and it's entertaining and it works, then actually if you've got the logo at the bottom, maybe at some point no one will really care because it's just a great piece of work. It's a creative piece of work. So it'll be interesting to see where it all goes actually.
Yeah, it will. So you also call it the AI catch-22. You can't ignore it, but you can't ignore the problems with it. So how do you personally sit with the training data and copyright issue, given that you're a copywriter?
Yeah, I mean, that's massive. How do I sit with it? So obviously, if we go right back to the beginning of AI and whether we like, the AI catch-22 is more of like, it's here whether we like it or not. Yeah. So how are we going to do this well and wisely? So I think it's difficult with the copyright, and it's difficult with the way that they've been trained, because they have all been trained on effectively stolen data. It's grabbed the internet and every source that we can think of and trained its models on that without giving anyone any kind of compensation or acknowledgement for that. So that is a fundamental problem. I think if I think about that too much, I feel like I need to just never use AI ever again. I honestly, in my journey, there's been so many times where I think I just can't do this anymore. Like I need, because I'm also I'm a yoga teacher, meditation teacher. I run women's circles in the woods. I desperately hugely value humans and human creativity and our amazing bodies and intuition and nature and all of these things. And there's been so many times where I'm like, I need to just go and live in a cabin in the woods. But the reality is, and what I always come back to is, it is here. And so now it's here, and I'm not dismissing the fact that it's been trained on stolen data, but what I'm saying, it's here, people are using it. How can we use it wisely and well? And so the way I sit with it, I have to not let that go. I'm always aware of that. But I think it's just around, okay, so I've got these tools now. How do I use them as well as I can? How do I think about the impact on society, on creativity, on critical thinking, on the environment, all of these things, and then just do what I can control, I guess. So choosing the right model. So if I go onto any ChatGPT or Gemini, wherever it might be, you can choose a model. I can now decide it's not just a default model anymore. I can choose whether I use a small model or a big model. If I'm just doing something that's very basic, I don't need to be using the big all singing, all dancing model every time, which is obviously going to be higher on compute power. So I use the smaller one. And just those decisions. Prompting, we talked a little bit about the AI sandwich and the importance of prompting. If I prompt it well, what it means that what I get out the other end is valuable first time around, which means I'm not going back in and just turning up and going, oh, will you just generate me this blog? And then it's not, no surprise, it's not very good. And then it's like, oh, can you make a bit more this, a bit more that, a bit more this, a bit. And before you know it, you've done 20 prompts and you're probably even still not there. So doing the thinking beforehand means that what comes out first time around is valuable. So I think those kind of things we can really think about. So it just goes back to the kind of mindful thing again about using it wisely, using it well. And I think that's all we can do, unfortunately. We don't have the control over how the models came to be, but we do have control over how we use them now.
Very sage advice. And it is two sides of your personality, I guess, or your, a dichotomy there of yoga teacher and mindfulness sessions in the woods and, being at the forefront of tech. And yet through this chat, I can see how you're blending them like brilliantly. Those sort of principles applied to the tech side. Would you say that's...
No, definitely. And I think it's taken me a long time to get there. It's probably because, first of all, I think people go, oh, what? So you teach that and you do that. But for me, they feel like the same side of two different sides of the same coin. And I think this whole mindful approach, this very human approach, this just thinking before we take action, it all kind of spills in to the work that I do day to day. As I said, I'm not one of those like, let's just, innovate as quickly as we can and break things as we go. I'm just not that kind of person. I just value humanity and nature and those things a bit too much. But so that's what I do. I spend my whole time trying to bash these two worlds together.
And so speaking of nature, that environmental impact, we've talked about this recently as well. Like there clearly is an environmental impact there. And has it changed? You talked about different models and how you'll use it, but are there certain things now that you prefer or you won't use?
Yeah, I think it goes back to the things I've just said really about prompting well, around choosing the right model for the job. I think it's just about making sure that the AI can also do the job. So for example, there are things that surprise, surprise, AI can't do, despite what LinkedIn says, lateral thinking. It just, you're never going to get a really amazing out there idea that people haven't seen before. It's generative. We're talking about generative AI. It's just more of the same. And you can kind of get at things from different angles, but it's never going to do something wild. And so it's like, if I know that, then I don't use AI to do those jobs. If I'm doing things like a highly conceptual campaign, or I'm writing copy, or I'm doing things like strap lines, which again, I would use AI maybe to get me started, but it's never going to do the final line for me, I don't think, because that's such a conceptual thing and it's very strategic. It kind of hurts my head doing that kind of copy. Yeah. So I know not to use AI for that, because I'll do so many prompts and not get anything. I just know this is a time where I need to sit down with pen and paper. Yeah. So I think it's knowing when to use it, when not to use it, And when you are going to use it, prompt it well and choose the right model so that you're minimizing the impact. And then as we're moving into, as we've done some of the training with you around AI agents, as we're moving into more automations and AI agents, again, it's making sure that the agents that are running, because obviously that's having an impact too, it's making sure that the agents that are running are proving valuable to you as a business. And making sure you haven't just got ones that you built, 6 months ago, not really doing very much, but still running all the time in the background.
Yeah.
So I think there's lots we can do around just making sure that we're using it as wisely and as well as possible.
Yeah, great. And as chair of the DMA's AI Council, which is phenomenal, congrats on that.
Yeah, I was
by
so
the way.
excited about that.
That is insane. Well done you.
Thank you.
They talk about responsible adoption. And I feel like, that is totally what you've been describing.
Yeah.
And would you say that is a real practice yet, or is that still an intention?
Yeah, it's an interesting question. I think it could be both. I think it depends where you are. Personally, if I'm working with clients, we talk about having things like an AI policy. I think governance, I think ethics need to be built in from the beginning. If you've already started and you're well on the way, then it's definitely time to create some kind of AI policy or protocols within your organisation. I do think everyone has that responsibility. Whether everyone is taking it, I don't know. I don't think it should be an intention. Well, it should be an intention, but I also think it can be a practical application of that. It's just going back over things we talked about, using it as wisely as possible, putting protocols in place, training your team so they know what to do, so people aren't doing things that are not responsible and often unintentionally. So I think it's just really thinking around the implementation. So yeah, I'd like to think that it's something we can do practically.
Yeah, great. And is there anything in your life that you're deliberately protecting from automating? Or
lots.
protecting from AI?
I think just going back over, I think one of my deepest concerns, as we've already talked about, is this, that we may hand over our thinking to AI. So I do worry about critical thinking. I worried about my creativity. I worry about independent thought. So And even things like reading, actually. And I wrote a LinkedIn post on this not very long ago around the fact that, I get a big research paper or something I need to read, and I'm like, oh gosh, maybe I should just get AI to summarize it for me. And so I did when that happened and I realized I'd done that, I had this big check-in with myself to what do I get from reading? And I always done lectures at universities, and it's the same thing. You need to keep reading, everybody. But I think when we read, we form our own opinions. We decide what's right and wrong. We maybe pull out complete different things to what the AI would pull out. So reading is one thing I'm preserving. I will use AI to help me summarize, of course. I will use it to sometimes help me direct my time. So if I'm deciding which very heavy research paper to read, which one, can you summarize them all? I'll then have a look at them and go, this one and this one, I need to read that from top to bottom, and I will. So reading, I think, is really important, because I just worry that we'll stop doing that. And intuition, I think a lot around, often I know I can go to AI and say, what should I do in this situation? But I also go, okay, what would I do? Maybe I should just stop and just ask myself. So I do journaling. I walk out in nature. I meet up with friends and have real conversations in real life. So all of the things, I guess the things that AI can't do, intuitive thinking, like relationships in real life, all of those things I really invest my time in. So yeah, lots of things, but it's an ongoing journey. It's like an ongoing journey of do I want AI to do this, or should I just do it? I'm constantly learning and changing my lines. So yeah.
So refreshing talking to you. It's just lovely. Okay, some quick fire questions to finish off, if that's okay. So, one tool you tell a video production team to try this week?
Runway, probably. Runway ML. I'd have a look at that. It's moving really quickly and probably worth having a look. I'd also say, I know this is supposed to be quick fire, I'd also say sometimes just going back to the things that you've got every day in your day-to-day work, like even things like using Copilot, just pressing the button in the bottom left and just seeing what it can do for you. Because I think sometimes we think about all of this front-facing stuff. We think about all of the things like in terms of video production around the final product. And actually there's a lot of things that a lot of time that can be saved, or a lot of efficiencies that can be had from just actually doing the day-to-day stuff as well.
Yeah.
So runway ML
Yeah.
for that stuff, just the background stuff, like where's the AI and the tools you're using every day?
Yeah, great. One thing you tell them to stop doing?
Stop doing. To use AI without any kind of thinking first.
Yeah.
So don't just turn up and
Default
rock
to
up
it.
and go, oh,
Yeah.
can you do this thing for me, without having either thought, just writing a couple of things down before you start using it. Just check in with yourself.
Yep.
Yeah.
In 5 years' time, will the term AI generated still act as a distinction, or is it just how things get made?
Oh, good one. I think it probably will be just how things get made. Will it be a distinction? Probably not. But I also wonder if there'll be a pushback, and maybe also 100% human will also be a distinction. So it's
Yeah.
like it may be that it's used in
Human-made.
or everything that we do, but also just this is 100% human created. There might also be something in that too. So yeah, probably two sides of that. But yeah,
I like that. What are you most excited about with AI, and what keeps you up at night?
most excited, I think probably time saving. So how can it save me time so I can do more of the stuff that I actually really want to do? Ideation, I really like using it as a thought partner to push back against me, stress test, come up with things that I would never thought about, I get it to ask me questions, so that sometimes I'm like, oh wow, I haven't even thought of that. That's really interesting. What keeps me up at night? So much, as we've already talked about. Just going back, critical, independent, creative thought. I worry about that.
Worry about those.
Yeah.
Well, it's been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you for having me.
Having you. Lovely to see you.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
We will talk again very soon.
Cool. Thank you so much.